morning to each and everyone. I'm Jedaya Sari. So I'll be discussing about the mercantilism. So what is mercantilism? First, let me provide you the executive summary about my report. So hopefully this provides a comprehensive overview of mercantilism, which is the dominant economic theory in Europe from the 16th to 18th centuries. So it defines the core principles of mercantilism, illustrates its practical application through colonial empires, and analyze the key questions that employ it, and explains the theories that led to its decline. Furthermore, it draws connection to modern economic policies that echo mercantilist ideas. The central thesis in that mercantilism was a system designed to build national power and wealth through strict government of trade and accumulations of precious metals, fundamentally shaping the course of world history. Then let's proceed in defining what is mercantilism. Mercantilism was the dominant economic theory and practice in Europe from the 16th to 18th centuries. It wasn't a formal, unified system, but rather a set of beliefs held by merchants and statesmen that guided the national policy. At its core, mercantilism is based on the principle that a nation's wealth and power are best served by increasing exports and collecting precious metals, especially the gold and silver. Basically, mercantilism was not a single formal law, but a suite of policies and beliefs that guided European nations during the age of exploration and colonialism. At its heart, it was an economic strategy based on a simple and powerful idea, that is, that the world's wealth was finite and a nation's prosperity depends on capturing a larger share of it at the expense of its rival. So basically, this zero sum mindset justified the extensive government intervention in the economy to maximize exports and minimize imports, all in the service of enhancing state power. So let's proceed to core principles of the mercantilist theory. So we know that mercantilist theory thought was built in several interconnected pillars. So first is the Bolionisms, which is unfortunately it's not included in my PPT, but I'll discuss it na lang. So Bolionism is the belief that the nation's wealth was measured by a gold and silver, which what was then called e-bullion. So parang yung economic goal dati is to amass, parang yung economic goal was then is to amass these precious metals. So the next one is the favorable balance of trade. So ito naman, favorable balance of trade is ito yung accumulate a bullion a country had to maintain a favorable balance of trade. Meaning, yung value of exports niya must always exceed the value of its import. So parang yung surplus would be paid to the nations in gold and silver. So the next one is the economic nationalism. So the economy is seen to strengthen the state, particularly its military and the political power. A wealthy state or a powerful state would acquire more wealth. So parang yun yung core concept para sa dati on how to accumulate wealth. So of course, there's also the rule of its colonies. So, yung mga colonies were considered essential not as a equal partner of their mother country, but as suppliers of raw materials and captive markets for finished goods. So, parang itong mga colony nito is they exist lang for the benefit of the mother country. So basically, they are not equal. So, and we have also what we call a government intervention. So, government intervention then During mercantilist time, it is required to have a heavy state control implemented through tariffs, subsidies, and monopolies. So basically, these core principles are interconnected din siya sa key policies and practices of the mercantilism, which is the colonialism, protectionism, monopolies, and the lastly, restriction on trade. So let's proceed sa decline of mercantilism. So nagsimula yung decline ng mercantilism during the late 18th century, which primarily due to the rise of classical economics. Or dyan din yung rise ng um, famous economist Adam Smith from his book The Wealth of Nations noong 1776. So according sa mga critics ni um, Adam Smith, first is wealth is not a bullion according to Smith. Parang argue ni Smith that the wealth of nation is a nation's productive capacity and the goods and services it can produce. So bale, ako basically kay Adam Smith, the wealth of nations ay mami-measure mo through the nation's overall productivity. Hindi siya mga dead stock like gold and silver. So according to Smith then, trade is a positive sum game. So, challenge ni Smith yung core ng mercantilism, which is the zero-sum premise, which arguing that both parties benefit from trade through specializations and comparative advantage, increasing total global wealth. Then, of course, the inefficiency and consumer harm. So, according to Smith, the protectionist policies like tariffs made goods more expensive for consumers and affected patients domestically consumption. According kay Adam Smith din, itong mercantilist stifled the innovation. So parang without the international competition, domestic industry had little incentive to improve their products or processes. So parang yung industrial revolution then further cemented the shift towards free capitalism making the mercantilist restrictions seem outdated. So I think that's all for my report about the mercantilisms.
So good day everyone, I am Princess Kamomot and on further discussion of the topic before economics, mercantilists and physiocrats, I will be presenting the four major thinkers associated with mercantilism or the critics of mercantilism. These figures include Josiah Child, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, Bernard Mandeville, and David Hume, to which they come from different backgrounds but all contributed significantly to the development or rethinking of economic ideas. Is Josiah Child. Well, he was an English economist, a defense contractor, a merchant, and a politician. He was a strong supporter of mercantilism and even served as governor of the East India Company, which is a massive private trading corporation. He was also a prominent merchant with a naval supply contracts, to which we can conclude that he really knew the trading inside out. And he also wrote or he authored the circumstances on the discourse on trade, but he published it anonymously, to which it has the core um, argument that if you want to beat the Dutch and become the richest nation on earth, we need to copy their number one secret, the cheap money. So in this book, it is basically his guide on how England could improve its trade because he saw that the Holland or the Netherlands as a model for economic prosperity, which he attributed to its low interest rates, religious toleration, and open immigration. He believed that by lowering the interest rates, England could make its trade more competitive with the Dutch, could attract foreign talents for religious freedom and immigration policies. Kasi nga, as we can recall that um, the church were widely respected and influential, especially the Roman Catholic Church at that time. And of course, stimulate economic activity, ultimately leading to the wealth and power to England. So for him, mas maganda to adopt this mindset kasi kapag mababang interest rates, mas mura ang pagpapahiram ng pera, kaya mas maraming merchants ang pwedeng mag-invest, ships, goods, and businesses. Holland had already done this and became very successful in trade, so Child thought that England could do the same. And while while these ideas were very influential, hindi pa rin siya very detailed or scientific. Kaya it was just like practical advice based on what work in real life rather than a deep economic analysis. Kaya hindi siya widely na incorporate into the nila policies rather. So next is Jean-Baptiste Colbert. He was a French Minister of Finance, served under the under the King Louis XIV from 1661 until his death in 1683. He implemented economic policies known as Colbertism, to which it is based on mercantilism, made to strengthen France through state control of the economy, promoting industry and trade, and building infrastructure like roads and canals, which at first nakakatulong siya in boosting the France in the global trade position. However, because of these high taxes implemented to poor and the corruption, kaya nagkaroon ng economic problems at social unrest. Aspirations led Colbert to advocate war as an instrument of economic policy. So he believed that the military force is part of to strengthen the nation's economy. So for him, if malakas ang military, mas kayang protektahan at widen the trade routes, the colonies, and the markets of France. So for him, war isn't about politics or territory. It was also a way for to strengthen the economy of the nation, and he regulated the minute details of industry. So he imposed very strict government control to almost all of the industries, even the most detailed one, like how the product should be made, what material should be used, what standard should be followed, and even the quality and the appearance of these goods. So in short, he wants the standardized, high quality, and government supervised the production process. And next is he wanted to increase work, exports, and child labor. So he aims to expand the workforce. Kaya he wants everyone to work. This include the children. Kasi pag mas malaking labor force, mas maraming goods ang nagagawa. And if mas maraming goods ang nagagawa, mas maraming may export. And pag mas maraming export, mas malaki yung kita ng gold and silver. And also, this mas maagang pagsimula sa trabaho in terms of the children dahil he believe mas tataas ang productivity. For him, the more the workers and output, the stronger the nation. Talaga. And next is the extreme government control still lives in France today. So maraming institution and administrative systems sa France today there's still strong influence of Colbert's policies, such as in the strong state involvement in the economy, heavy regulation, centralized bureaucracy, strong role of the government and key industries. So next is Bernard de Mandeville. So he was an Anglo-Dutch philosopher, a physician, a political economist, and a writer, and he is best known as a sharp social satirist and a critic of moral hypocrisy. So his most famous work, The Fable of the Bees, where he uses a beehive to represent human society, in which he argues that what we call vices or the visual, like the self-interest and luxury spending, are, in fact, the engines that drive a complex, wealthy economy. So in his book, these are the followings that is the points of his arguments. So as I've said earlier, um, he argued that the private vices, such as the self-interest or greed, like wanting wealth, status, or comfort, can create public benefits. So if this is applied to work and businesses, it becomes a reason for the job creation, the production, and economic growth. Kaya, for him, even if it is self-interest that drives or that motivates the person, it would create a good outcome for the society. And next one is he promoted that the idea that self-interest drives trade and prosperity. So in mercantilism, the focus is on government control, no? But for Montefiore, he suggested that the natural economic progress comes in every person who works hard because of personal goals rather, looks for better opportunities and spending based on their vices or bisho. So they in which these personal desires leads to trade, innovation, and wealth creation. And to simply put it, kung walang personal ambition, wala economic progress. Like ganon. And next is, and lastly is, important, it is important bridge between mercantilism and early free market thought. So Mandeville's ideas became a transition point from state-controlled mercantilism to free market economics rather. He shows that hindi lang gobyerno ang source ng economic strength. Um, Also, the individual incentives and behavior play a huge role then. So this also helped inspire later thinkers like Adam Smith, no, who built on the idea that self-interest can lead to social good through markets. So the next philosopher is David Hume. He was a Scottish philosopher, historian, and economist, renowned for his influential contributions to empiricism, philosophical skepticism, and metaphysical naturalism. So beyond the philosophy, he critically examined economic thought then, challenging mercantilist ideas in his essays of money, um, of the balance of trade and of commerce, arguing for more realistic understanding of trade, money, and commerce. These are the following points of his arguments. First is he denied that that the money and gold were equivalent to wealth. Instead, they had merely instrumental value, to which nag-contradict siya of the mercantilism view that the gold and silver are wealth, no. But for him, the nation's true wealth lies in its goods, services, and products, such as the foods, clothes, and such to which ginagamit and kinukonsume ng mga tao. For example nito, if you have 1 million peso pero wala ka namang pagkain sa palengke, wala kang mabibili. But if you have a few amount of money but there are goods and services there, meron at meron ka talagang mabibili. Kaya for him, there is no development sa pag-iipon ng gold if there is no production. Hoarding gold in a vault does a country no good. Its value is only realized when it is used to buy real things. And second, he thought that accumulating precious metals would result in higher prices or inflation. In mercantilism view, kapag mas maraming gold, mas mayaman ang bansa, and there is no downside to that. But for him, he explained that in his price specie flow mechanism, kapag mas maraming gold na pumapasok sa bansa, tumataas ang amount of money in circulation. but hindi naman dumadami yung goods na binebenta, natural na that the price would go high. For example nito, kung lahat ng tao sa isang barangay sabay-sabay na naka-receive ng Christmas bonus, pero ang dami ng bigas, itlog, and gulay in the market ay same pa rin, for sure, tataas ang presyo kasi mas maraming gustong bumili. This goes the same for kung puro gold ang iniipon ng bansa pero hindi tumataas ang production, ang ending ay inflation. Ganon. And next is yung believe that imports as well as exports were beneficial. Once again, kinokontradict dito yung mercantilism view that exports are good, imports are bad. But for him, both imports and exports are vital for a healthy economy. So he argued that the imports are not a sign of economic failure but a source of prosperity, because they provide consumers with a greater variety of goods, often at lower prices or of higher prices, higher quality. For example nito, mas mura minsan ang imported na bigas or sibuyas. Mas mataas ang quality ng imported na medical equipment, and mas maraming variety of clothes, gadgets, and materials. So the presence of imported goods ay nagpo-push sa local producers na mag-improve ng quality para makipag-compete. In this, it is a win-win situation, to which may pressure to innovate and consumers get better options. Next is, and lastly, he suggested that the trade was not equivalent to warfare, since both parties have or get the transaction benefit. So in mercantilism view, trade is a zero-sum game, meaning one country's gain is another's loss. But for Hume, trade is a positive sum game, meaning both countries can win. He rejected the idea that the trade was economic warfare. He saw it as a mutually beneficial partnership. Each nation trades, exporting surplus products nila at importing products na kulang sa kanila. Ang nagbebenta ay kumikita and the buyer gets the goods na kailangan o gusto nila, in which both sides are better off. For example nito, nag-export ng Philippines ng saging and pineapples, to which kumikita tayo. Nag-import tayo ng oil dahil wala tayo nun. And meaning, nakakakuha tayo ng produktong kailangan natin. This also means that yung nagbebenta, nakakuha silang revenue. And yung bumibili is, they get the goods na hindi nila kayang gawin o mas mahal kapag ginawa nila locally. So in short, trade is partnership, hindi competition, for David Hume. So this is the comparison and the summary of the four thinkers and their main ideas and economic focus. So as we can see, child focus on practical trade strategies like lowering interest rates, while Colbert naman emphasizes strict state control and export-driven growth, while Mandeville highlighted how self-interest and human vices can boost the economy. And lastly, Hume challenged mercantilism by arguing that real wealth is not gold, imports are good rather, and trade benefits both sides. So collectively, they represent a shift from state-centered control. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have learned something.